everyone. This is Dawn, and today we're on to the fifth session of our retreat that we began more than a month ago. And the last few weeks we've explored what it is to live in harmony with God and to be inspired by the people who seem to get it right. And this week we shift, and we're going to spend time reflecting on the evil that results from the rejection of God and God's desire for us. In effect, we're trying to become aware of the arrogance and opposition to God's will and God's grace that is part of our world. We do this because, no one likes to look in the face of evil, but within this context, we're trying to get a sense of sin and to know the mercy of God and the depths of His love for us in the death and resurrection of Jesus. And so I do have a handout that I'll put. I feel like a teacher. Take one and pass one back. But I'll link to it that if this would be helpful in your reflection this week, to use that. And on it just gives some reminders, which if you're not catching everything in this, it might be helpful. So there's going to be two images to use this week. One is the ones that come to us when we reflect on the evil that is in our world, the sin that is part of this world. And then the second one is the image of Jesus on the cross, liberating us from sin and death. The reality that the sin is not the last word. And so maybe you would begin each day as you start your reflection and you pray for the grace to become outraged by the sin that is in our world throughout history. It's not just today, but throughout all of history. So to begin your day with that image and sort of let it run, but by the end of the day, to replace that image of sin with an image of Jesus on the cross. And maybe have a conversation, a face-to-face conversation with Jesus, to remember the depth of His love that overcomes all the sin in our world today and throughout of history. This really isn't about personal sin, but about having a sense of sin, something that our culture seems to have lost, and then deep gratitude for God's mercy and love. This isn't meant to be discouraging, but to actually give us hope, which seems backwards when you think of, we're going to think about sin. But it's meant to give us hope. But I have sort of an analogy that will hopefully help you work through this week. If you think of a painting or a picture which is inside a frame, so here I have this lovely image of it. The point of the frame is not to be all showy. The point of the frame is to direct your eye to what it is framing. And so in the exercises this week, it could be tempting to fill the canvas of your painting with all your personal sins or how horrible things are. And then somewhere on the surrounding frame, maybe to have some somewhat arbitrary love of God. But the opposite is really true. The critical focus of our picture needs to be Jesus and His love for us and for our world. And what highlights the image of Jesus is our resistance to this love. And then when you put it together, you can see that our sin is why Jesus came to take His place in the center of the canvas. Don't be overwhelmed by guilt, I guess, throughout this. Sometimes we try and show sometimes we try to show God how awful we are and how much we're unworthy of His love. But again, we fill the canvas with what's not important. That's not true. We talk negatively about ourselves. We make up huge penances to do so that maybe God will have pity on us. But when we do that, we put ourselves at the center of the painting. And God is somewhere outside the frame, and that He's not even in the frame. When we do that, we make God like a spectator or an art critic, but that's not the reality. The reality is that Jesus should be at the center of our frame, at the center of our picture, and the sin and what draws us to Him is what frames it. And so this week, I invite you to ask for the grace to see the outrageous rebellion, the evil of sin in our world, but also the merciful love of God in the death of Jesus, for this Jesus' death for the sin in our world. And may you be filled with hope this week.